US government banned the export of American AI chips, restricted model weights, blacklisted Alibaba and Baidu as Chinese military companies, and just last month banned Anthropic's flagship model from every foreign national on the planet. But Chinese labs responded by building cheaper, more efficient models and priced them at 1/9 the cost of the American alternative. Anthropic confidently filed for an IPO targeting October at a $965 billion valuation. OpenAI followed days later with its own confidential filing. But here's the problem. Both companies built their financial models on the assumption that they could keep charging enterprise prices that are 9 to 33 times what Chinese competitors charge for the same task. There is no chance this is going to work out long term, and these American AI companies will now have to reduce their pricing to compete with the Chinese AI platforms.
大家好，美国曾经认为，只要切断中国获得先进技术的道路，就能够阻止中国科技崛起。但一个让美国意想不到的结果正在出现，那些试图限制中国发展的措施，似乎正在推动中国走向更强大的自主创新。从华为被制裁，到先进 AI 芯片出口禁令，再到如今中美人工智能竞争全面升级，美国不断加码技术限制。但问题是，中国真的被限制住了吗？还是说，这场科技围堵正在创造一个更强大的竞争对手？一位美国作者近日就提出了自己的观点，他指出，从华为自主研发芯片和操作系统，到中国 AI 企业推出低成本、高性能的大模型，中国正在用另一种方式参与全球科技竞争，甚至一些企业开始重新评估选择。当中国 AI 能够以更低成本完成相同任务时，未来的科技竞争究竟比拼的是谁投入更多资金，还是谁能够让技术真正普及全球？美国的技术封锁究竟是一场成功的遏制战略，还是一次意外的助推器？中国 AI 的崛起又是否正在改变未来全球科技竞争的规则？让我们一起走进今天的内容。
Every time the United States government tries to slow China's rise, it backfires into long-term success for China. In 2019, the US government blacklisted Huawei with the specific goal of strangling China's largest tech company. But Huawei came back stronger than ever by building its own chips, its own operating system, and its own AI ecosystem, and today operates in over 170 countries, serving over 3 billion people worldwide. In 2022, the US government banned the export of NVIDIA's most advanced AI microchips in an effort to hopefully win the AI race. But just 2 years later, Chinese developers shocked Silicon Valley by launching DeepSeek, an advanced language learning model that is open source, was developed for 1/20th the cost of OpenAI, and produced the same quality results. And now in 2026, we have the latest Chinese breakthrough that was once again inspired by the US government's overreaching controls. This is China's Lianshine supercomputer, and it just became the world's fastest supercomputer, overtaking the US for the first time since 2017. But the real story is not just the speed, it's how China achieved it. Once again, China defied the odds, found a way around US sanctions, and built this entire supercomputer using homegrown microchips and exclusive Chinese technology. And trust me, China's new breakthrough could change the entire future of the AI race between the United States and China. But now let me show you the exact moment Chinese AI beat American AI. Coinbase, which is one of the largest public crypto companies in the world, just dumped OpenAI and Anthropic and switched to open-weight Chinese models from Zhipu and DeepSeek. The reason for this is incredibly simple. Chinese AI models can perform the exact same computations as their American counterparts, but do so at a fraction of the cost. When Coinbase was using American AI models, their cost for the workload turned out to be $4,811. But running the exact same workload through China's Zhipu cost the company only $544. What company in the world doesn't want to pay 1/9 the cost for the exact same level of service? Just listen to this report from CNBC as they break the news to American investors that our AI bubble will be popping very soon.
Zhipu's latest model, it's called GLM 5.2, comes out of China. It has landed with a bang in Silicon Valley, blowing past all other open source models, nearly matching the American frontier for just a fraction of the price. Developers, they're piling in, open router token traffic showing much quicker adoption for GLM 5.2 than DeepSeek's V4 launch, GLM 5.2. This is different. It's strong at agentic work, and that is key. On one agentic benchmark, it is just 1 percentage point away from Opus 4.8 for a fifth of the cost. Now, Opus 4.8, that is Anthropic's most most powerfully available model. So basically, you're getting very close to the same horsepower for just a fraction of a cost. And it really comes at a time when expensive AI is already eating into budgets. And that is a really hard trade-off for enterprises, for companies, for Fortune 500 to ignore.
You see, Coinbase was the first American company we've seen do the simple math and decide to make the move to Chinese AI models. And as this CNBC report details, cheap AI could derail OpenAI and Anthropic's IPOs, as adoption is already shifting, with Chinese models taking a growing share of enterprise AI traffic. Now here's a stat that's going to blow your mind. 45% of enterprise companies are now spending $100,000 per month on AI, up 20% from last year, and every one of those companies is one quarterly budget review away from dumping American AI platforms. Honestly, this reminds me a lot of Trump's failed tariff war with China. Last April, Trump decided to go after the Chinese economy and slap tariffs on Chinese imports that at their peak reached an incredible 145%. Trump's thinking was too simple. He thought that if he could tariff Chinese imports at this extreme high rate, it would force American companies to abandon their Chinese manufacturing and reshore their factories to the United States. In theory, this would create a manufacturing boom in the US, millions of new jobs could be added to the US economy, but this only worked on paper. In the real world, US companies like Apple and Nike have spent decades building dedicated supply chains throughout China, and there is no way US companies could afford to reshore their factories and still remain profitable. Eventually, Trump gave up his tariff war on China, and Trump quietly retreated, never admitting defeat, but also never achieving anything with his failed tariff war. And now the same logic is applying to the AI industry. As I mentioned at the start of the video, the US government banned the export of American AI chips, restricted model weights, blacklisted Alibaba and Baidu as Chinese military companies, and just last month banned Anthropic's flagship model from every foreign national on the planet. But Chinese labs responded by building cheaper, more efficient models, and priced them at 1/9 the cost of the American alternative. Anthropic confidently filed for an IPO targeting October at a $965 billion valuation. OpenAI followed days later with its own confidential filing. But here's the problem. Both companies built their financial models on the assumption that they could keep charging enterprise prices that are 9 to 33 times what Chinese competitors charge for the same task. There is no chance this is going to work out long term, and these American AI companies will now have to reduce their pricing to compete with the Chinese AI platforms. In fact, just listen to what Anthropic's CEO told US lawmakers this week.
The scaling of open source models, I think it's going down a very dangerous path. If the path continues, I think we could get to a very dangerous place. When you control a model and you're deploying it, you have the ability to monitor its usage. It might be misused at one point, but then you can alter the model. You can revoke a user's access. You can change what the model is willing to do. But I think here we're talking about something a little bit different, which is a more uncontrolled release of larger models by much larger entities that pay tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars to train them. I think we should think of that in a little bit of a different category and their obligations in a little bit of a different category.
Let me translate that message into simple English. Anthropic's CEO is essentially asking the US government to ban his competitors and target China's open source models. But as I proved with numerous examples, every time the US goes down this path of trying to ban competition, it ends in complete failure and will ultimately backfire. For some perspective on this, listen to this quote from futurist Daniel Jeffries, who perfectly describes the situation between the US and China. We're following the old China playbook: authoritarian, gated, controlled, fear-based, and China is following the old American playbook: open, widely distributed, entrepreneurial, capitalistic. It doesn't take a genius to figure out who wins. We better change course fast. And he's right, because the United States better wake up and start planning on how to compete with the Chinese, because President Xi has made it very clear the path that China will follow in the future. Bloomberg reported this week that China will now push all school levels to teach AI, and a new tech drive coming directly from China's president. Earlier this week, China announced a new 5-year blueprint that will make AI a core capability for every Chinese student across every grade level. And this is a huge deal, because one thing we've seen China do very successfully over its history is launch concrete 5-year plans and achieve significant success. In fact, if we look at the Chinese economy and its share of the world's GDP over the past 25 years, look at the significant growth China has achieved, while the United States has been declining every year since 2000. In fact, India, one of the fastest growing economies in the world, remains the competitor most likely to challenge America's status as the world's #2 power. The future of our global economy is China, as the world outside the US is increasingly driving Chinese electric vehicles, scrolling the web on Chinese smartphones, and powering their homes with Chinese solar panels. But China is also going to become the #1 provider of AI models for US companies. Just look at how some of the biggest companies in the world have already began that transition. I've already mentioned the big shift from Coinbase, but how about Shopify moving over to Alibaba's Qwen AI platform? Airbnb and Uber Eats also followed the same path, along with Germany's Siemens, and even Microsoft, one of the staples of American tech, is now testing China's DeepSeek version 4, which was released in April. Once again, let me share with you the insights from one of America's AI CEOs. This is Alex Svavany, who runs Nansen AI, and he shares, "I never expected China to win the AI soft power war. Dario and Sam, who are the CEOs of Anthropic and OpenAI, spend their airtime talking about how AI will destroy jobs. Meanwhile, Chinese labs are releasing cheap models and winning the open source community. Did not see this coming." And to give you an insight into how China is changing the future of AI, listen to this fascinating report from Shanghai Eye, which shows China is not only developing the world's best AI models, but also shipping processed tokens overseas via undersea cables. This is an absolute game changer.
Data companies in southern China's Guangdong province are engaging in a new kind of foreign trade, exporting digital tokens. A token is the smallest unit of measurement that represents a word or part of a word that AI large models use to process text. Exporting tokens involves leveraging domestic computing power and sending processed results overseas via submarine optical cables. This year, with the surge in overseas AI demand, the digital token export business has experienced rapid growth.
We have increased our daily overseas token outflow from 100 million to over 10 billion, and it's still increasing.
Data shows that in 2025, China's daily token calls increased exponentially from over 1 trillion at the beginning of the year to 100 trillion by the end.
Wow. In 1 year, China's token demand went from 1 trillion to 100 trillion. And trust me, this is just the beginning of China's domination of the AI industry. Everyone, you follow channels like this because we report on the stories that mainstream media misses. But as I've explained throughout today's video, China is inventing the future and doing so in a way that simply can't be ignored any longer. In the future, China will be able to offer the world cheaper, faster, and more efficient AI models, and it doesn't take a genius to understand that consumers will always choose the best.
从这场分析可以看出，真正的争议或许并不只是中国 AI 能否追赶美国，而是当中国开始突破技术封锁之后，全球科技竞争的规则是否正在发生改变。从华为遭遇制裁后坚持自主研发，到中国 AI 企业在芯片限制下推出低成本、高性能的大模型，从美国试图通过出口管制保持技术优势，到中国寻找新的突破路径。这位作者认为，美国的一系列限制措施并没有阻止中国科技发展，反而推动中国加速建立自己的技术体系。但问题也正在于此，美国的技术封锁究竟是在削弱中国的竞争力，还是正在迫使中国完成一次更彻底的科技突破？当中国 AI 凭借成本优势、产业规模和快速应用能力进入全球市场时，未来人工智能领域的主导权是否会迎来新的变化？那么，你认为中国科技的崛起是美国限制政策失效后的意外结果，还是中国长期积累后的必然突破？未来中美 AI 竞争，究竟谁能够掌握下一轮科技革命的主动权？欢迎在评论区留下你的看法。